What I really want in Fresno is for people to come together for a common purpose of making this city a better place to live for everyone, north and south. That's the purpose behind One Fresno. We're not united. We're not focusing on those things that are most important to the people who live in those neighborhoods.
Most folks agree that a Dyer administration would just be a continuation of the current one. A Janz administration would be forward-thinking. It's going to be an administration that is based in ethics, transparency, and supporting good ideas that will create a healthy community, a community that we can all be proud of, a place where we want to raise our children, our families, and a place where businesses will want to come to invest. I'm not going to talk about my team in terms of names, but I will say this, and I will make this pledge now, no political appointments. The best person will get the job, and it has to be folks that represent my vision for the city and folks that demographically and philosophically represent the views of the people of the city of Fresno. And so the best person will get the job done. No political appointments.
I think it's very popular for people who are not intimately familiar with the workings of City Hall or the people at City Hall to make a broad statement that they're going to clean house and wipe out everyone. I think Tim Orman is a brilliant individual, very political minded, but what people don't see behind the scenes is what I've seen at City Hall. This guy is extremely analytical. He's good with numbers. He's very detail oriented. He's a quick study. And so I think he has served Lee in a good way in many respects. You know, the question is, what am I going to do when I get in there? And I think it's premature to say. Number one, I got to get through the election. I have a good relationship with Tim myself. I think he's done good for the city. Some may argue that you shouldn't have a person with that kind of political history in that position. But you know, you take one with the other. So I haven't made up my mind in terms of who I would surround myself with, but I can tell you what I'm looking for is people with a strong work ethic, people with strong character, people who are willing to fulfill the vision that I have for Fresno, and they're willing to be flexible enough to work with individuals who may have a different opinion.
In terms of how I'm going to operate as mayor when we're in there, we need leadership at City Hall. We need direction. And the biggest complaint that I hear from folks who work in the building and folks that are trying to come to the building and do business with the city is that there are employees that work there who really don't know who their supervisor is. And so that is a major problem. I think that under a Janz administration, there's going to be direct lines of communication and there's going to be a leadership structure in place. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the city manager and the mayor are going to be accountable.
The voters of Fresno will be supporting a person who has proven leadership in the city. In time of a crisis, I will be that person that brings calm. I believe I've shown that over the last 18 years. In fact, I know I have, and I'm going to continue to do that as the mayor of this city. I'm intimately familiar with the city budget process, the ins and outs, intimately familiar with the departments, and can go in and I believe make some changes more quickly than perhaps an outsider could or someone not as familiar with it. I'm also very familiar with the process of litigation, personnel issues that we deal with on a daily basis in our city.
It's so important for me to make sure that there is that separation between developers who I think have dominated city politics for an entire generation. Talk about Operation Rezone. There needs to be a separation there, and I'm going to do it. I don't have to do it, but I want to really send a strong message. I'm doing something that no other local candidate has ever done in the city of Fresno, and being very public in terms of who I'm going to be soliciting campaign donations from. I've been very clear that I'm not going to take any money from a developer. It's just my way of communicating to the voters that live here in the city that I won't be bought.
People are going to get someone who is experienced, someone who is calm in the crisis, someone who is passionate about this city and sold out for Fresno. It's not to gain any fame or to get any fortune. It's to fix problems in Fresno and to work with people to get that done. And so that's what people are going to get. There's been some common themes about whether or not folks in the business community feel that they are welcomed at City Hall, whether or not the process in place is the most efficient. And I believe we have to take a strong look at that. To have someone come in from the outside to thoroughly look at our process and determine why are other cities maybe viewed more favorably than Fresno.
My wife is a small business owner, and so I see firsthand how hard it is to, number one, start a business, and then number two, keep it going. And I've met with, I can't even count how many small business owners here in the city of Fresno in terms of how difficult it has been for them to start up and expand and do all of the great things that businesses do. I really want to roll out the red carpet for small businesses. I think the vast majority of people would agree that small businesses is really the backbone of our economy here. And so we should roll out the red carpet for them like we do for Amazon and Ulta. Amazon and Ulta, they're getting huge tax breaks to do what they're doing. I don't know at this point in time what type of an economic impact it has really had on our city. I know that the current administration touts it as sort of one of their accomplishments, but I think that the jury's still out.
Why is it that Fresno, when you talk about some of the processes in place, that people say that it's a roadblock? You go to Clovis, they roll out the red carpet. You come to Fresno, they roll out the red tape or the rule book. We have to fix that, whether it's a perception or reality.
The mayor of Fresno is the face of this city, and we need to be aggressive in going after federal and state dollars to address the problems that we have.
We need enhanced revenue in the city of Fresno. We can't continue to go down the path that we're going because every single year we're either status quo in terms of what we have or we're making some type of budgetary cuts. I don't believe that the city of Fresno has a spending problem. I believe we have a revenue problem. And if we're ever going to do the things that this city needs to do, and so people feel good about their neighborhoods, feel good about their parks, feel good about public safety, there's going to have to be a sustained revenue. The voters of this city are going to have to come forth and vote on some type of an increased sales tax.
I want to make sure that we support any type of project that creates investment in our community. Whatever the stakeholders in these negotiations come up with, I will back, because I think it's just so important that absolutely we need to have money for the parks, for arts. I think that there's an opportunity to create additional support and garner more support from folks in the community if we involve the firefighters, who I think absolutely need more funding. Since 2010, last 10 years, we've seen the reports, over $17 million worth of payouts for police shootings, discrimination lawsuits, and things like that. And I always ask the voters when I'm out there talking to them, what could we have bought with $17 million? We could have built new schools, new classrooms, we could have built roads, hired more firefighters. And so for me, I think that really reflects on the leadership at the Fresno Police Department. I think that's a reflection on Jerry Dyer, and I really believe that the city of Fresno can't afford another 4 years of Jerry Dyer. I supported parks last time around, and just speaking from a legal perspective, I think the initiative passed. I know it's being challenged in court now, but I don't think that the 2/3 requirement applies to a citizen-led petition. That's going to be settled by the Supreme Court.
I opposed Measure P in the way that it was written and the manner in which it occurred. I love parks. We need to do a better job of beautifying our parks, enhancing our trail system. I believe that with all my heart. It is part of our infrastructure in the city that has been neglected.
As a mayor, I would never go out there, as Lee Brand and Jerry Dyer did in here, and actively campaign against something that would be so helpful to our children in the city.
The Measure P was for 30 years. I could not support a 30-year sales tax in our city. 15, 20 at the most, I think would be something that the voters in Fresno would support.
The strategic plan that you're talking about, it's a long-term vision for the city, and really sets us a roadmap as to where we need to go, sets goals as to how we should go about achieving those goals. From my personal perspective, I think that the master plan is good, and we just did it in 2014, and so there's no reason for us to scrap that.
You know, the issue of development and land use in our city is something that is very complicated. It's complicated because of what we've inherited as a city. We went through a period of urban sprawl, so now we're having to address it. The difficulty is when you tell developers in your city that you can only build within a certain area or inner city, and for them sometimes it doesn't pencil out. They're not able to make a profit without some form of a subsidy. Those builders then start looking outside as to where they can develop some higher levels of housing. Whether they're going to Clovis, as they have been for the last several years, to Madera, now that we're seeing the projects in Madera that are significant, we are losing that housing development in our city.
I believe wholeheartedly that we need to reinvest in the core and the interior of our city. I think that there's certain aspects of the general plan that we've been less successful in implementing in terms of what we're doing downtown and the corridors leading into downtown. I think that we've made some progress, but we can do better.
So the balance has to be, how do we develop within our inner city and build up and make that profitable for those individuals who are building? And where do we get subsidies for that? If you're in the true inner city, you pay no impact fees. If you go out a little further, you pay a reduced impact fee. And so we have to explore a lot of those options. But one thing for certain, we can't leave our neighborhoods behind in the southern part of the city.
The state of California is ready to invest in Fresno, and there is criticism amongst some of our statewide lawmakers that our city, the city of Fresno, the Lee Brand administration, hasn't been aggressive enough in terms of going after those dollars. And so I'm working to build relationships all across the country, all across the state, and I think that I've done it already. And so I think that would be another positive to a Janz administration. We need to be more aggressive in going after these dollars.
We do have some council members that have some influence, I believe, in Sacramento. We have Esmeralda Soria, who has been appointed by the governor on some form of a homeless task force for the state. I want to take advantage of that. She is definitely going to be doing what's right for Fresno, trying to get funding for Fresno in that arena. So I definitely want to take advantage of those relationships. I have some relationships in the federal government. As a result, I was a vice president for major city chiefs. And so I've had contacts throughout the federal government at various levels. I'm going to take advantage of those. And so I think that's what builds a team. It's not about whether you're Democrat or Republican. It's whether or not you have relationships outside of Fresno that can benefit our city as a whole. That's what I want to take advantage of.
We need to have a partner in the White House that's going to be willing to work with us, and somebody that's going to stand up against the Trump administration in terms of what he's doing with cutting grant funding to California for HUD, for affordable housing. This tariff war with China is really hurting our local economy. You see folks driving around saying, my job depends on ag. All of our jobs here depend on ag, and so when we have a tariff war that is costing our growers billions of dollars, that's not good for us. And so we need a mayor that is going to be willing to stand up to Donald Trump and his divisive, destructive policies. Probably one of my most important first decisions as mayor is going to be the police chief. If Lee Brand or Jerry Dyer attempt to install a police chief during this lame duck period between now and January 2020, one of my first acts as mayor would be to go back and restart the process. We're going to have a new police chief in place.
Everyone wants to be a part of the process, and you can't have everyone as part of the process. So you have to consult with those individuals who really have the best interests of Fresno at heart, not just one neighborhood or what part of Fresno, but the entire community. What I do know in the next police chief, though, has to be someone who is very community-minded. Has to be someone who can prevent incidents from causing issues in our community like we've seen in Baltimore and Chicago and New York, where you have people protesting and rioting in your city. If people don't trust the police chief to do what's right in that department in terms of holding people accountable, having sound policies and training, then you're going to end up with people who do not trust the police. Therefore, when an incident occurs, they will not give the police the benefit of the doubt. Who that is, I don't know yet, but I do know we have some great internal candidates in the police department that are highly skilled, well-trained. With Andy Hall as the police chief over the next 17, 18 months, those people will be allowed to gain that necessary experience at a higher level and then be strongly considered for the next police chief position.
And I really want to move beyond this fight that we're seeing between the council and the mayor's office. And I'm concerned that if we have a Jerry Dyer administration, that inability to compromise, that inability to communicate will just fester and continue. I'm really concerned about that, and that'll really hold Fresno back.
You know, I meet with the council members. I believe I have a good relationship with the council members. That doesn't mean we agree on every issue, and that doesn't mean we won't sometimes butt heads publicly. But I do believe we can work together for the betterment of this city. That's my goal.
I think that if you look at the results of the elections in terms of specific districts for city council, the city is clearly moving in a certain direction. The mayor's race is nonpartisan, I understand that, but you can't ignore the outpouring of support for progressive and Democratic candidates at the local level. Gary's the last Republican city council member in the city of Fresno.
I'm a registered Republican. There was a time in my life where I was a registered Democrat. People say, are you Republican or Democrat? That's one of the differences I think we focus on as a city. And when we do that, we create an automatic divide. So we have to focus on who we are as individuals and what's right for Fresno, not on our party affiliation. People who may be opposed to me are the people who may not know me as a person. They may have only had exposure to me by what they've seen on television, standing behind a podium at a news conference talking about an investigation or a case or the arrest of a gang member or whatever the case is. But what they may not know is who I am as a person, my heart. And what I've been trying to convey to people that I've had meetings with one-on-one and community meetings is for them to see my heart, for them to know that I love every square inch of the city. I care about the children who are growing up in poverty. I've worked in those neighborhoods. I've gone into those homes and seen families that are extremely poor, kids that really just, they don't have a chance in life. So we can't turn our head away from that. We have to recognize it, embrace it, and help those families. So all I can do is continue to work with people and let them know I care. I won't be a North End mayor, I won't be a South End mayor, I'm gonna be the mayor of Fresno. I know sometimes that's easy to say because you got people pulling at you in different directions, but that's my core.
With respect to the amount of media attention that is being paid to both campaigns, I think that that's a question for the media. I'm at just as many events as Jerry is after I get off of work. There is this constant desire to cover Jerry, and we recognize that. But it's also important to remember that, we're just rolling off of a $9.2 million campaign where we knocked on 150,000 doors here in the Central Valley, 50,000 in the city of Fresno. I don't approach this campaign in the traditional sense of, I need to get covered by the Fresno Bee, I need to be on ABC 30, GB Wire, to connect with voters and to show them that I'm actually doing something. We have a strong social media presence. We have, I think, 10 times as many followers on social media than the other guy. And so we're really operating a 21st century campaign. We're organized. We have over 2,000 volunteers that are walking doors. We have precinct captains in place. And so there's going to be, and there is an existing ground campaign that's occurring. Maybe not so sexy for the media to cover, but it's the things that you need to do when you're running for office.